a student at Luther College right now. I am part of the Luther College One Campaign / Hunger Concern, and my question is for you: what is your plan to combat poverty globally and domestically, as well as AIDS globally and domestically?
Well, let me start by just saying something that a lot of people in the room probably know already. I mean, the whole issue of poverty is the cause of my life. And I've been running a poverty center at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, focused on domestic poverty. And what do we do about poverty here in America? Let me do that first, and then I'll move to the second piece, which is what do you do about global poverty and the spread of HIV/AIDS. Are you only interested in HIV/AIDS globally or also here domestically?
It's still an issue here domestically, but it's more of an issue with 40 million
Why don't I
living with AIDS and 25 million living with AIDS in Africa.
Why don't I talk about it in both places? So first, poverty here in America. We have 37 million people who wake up every day living in poverty. Those pictures that came out of the 9th Ward of New Orleans, the whole world saw those pictures, and they want to know what we're going to do about it. What is the richest nation on the planet going to do about millions of its own people who are living like that? My own view is we don't need a surge in Baghdad, we need a surge in New Orleans to help the people in New Orleans who are struggling so much. And here's what I think we should do about poverty. I won't go through everything, but here's some ideas. The Congress finally raised the minimum wage. Now it's going to go to $7.25 an hour. It's great. It's not enough. Minimum wage ought to be at least $9.50 an hour. We ought to expand the earned income. It ought to be indexed to go up on its own. We should expand the earned income tax credit for low-income families, the refundable tax credit. We should strengthen the right of unions to organize in the workplace and change the law to empower workers to be able to join a union. We should have a national predatory lending law that stops these predators from coming in and stripping away the assets of low-income families when they're able to accumulate some assets. They also hit middle-class families, not just low-income families. I think we need 1 million new Section 8 housing vouchers because we got lots of people in this country who are either living in shelters or have no place to live, and that's not right. And some of these people are working, by the way. Some of them are working full-time. So 1 million new Section 8 housing vouchers. And then finally, I think that we ought to make it easier for kids to go to college. And the simple way that I would do that is something called College for Everyone, where we say to all young people, if you graduate from high school, qualified to go to college, and commit to work when you're there at least 10 hours a week, America will pay for your tuition and books. Very simple. Very simple. And a big chunk of that can be paid for by eliminating the bank as the intermediary in student loans. What's happening now, student loans are being made, and the government makes them through big banks. And big banks, I see various estimates, $3 to $5 billion a year in that ballpark is how much they're making because they act as an intermediary. I'll stop there on domestic poverty. On domestic AIDS, there are a variety of HIV/AIDS. There are a variety of things that need to be done. First, universal health care, which I spoke about a minute ago, so that anybody who's diagnosed with HIV immediately gets treatment. Until we have universal health care, we ought to make sure that Medicaid covers HIV treatment. We ought to have full funding for Ryan White. We also, which is the law that's aimed at dealing with this, which you're familiar with, we also ought to be teaching age-appropriate sex education so that kids, young people can learn how to avoid being infected with HIV. We ought to increase the funding for research at the NIH to try to find a cure for HIV. Now let me switch to global. And I'll do AIDS and then go to global poverty. AIDS. What I believe is that America is going to have to make a commitment to make AIDS treatment available, access to treatment available worldwide. It's going to require significantly more investment than we've made so far. I think over the next 5 years, $50 billion. That's how much America ought to be investing. As to the issue of global poverty, I think this is a huge issue facing America and the world. You should just know your organization, started by Bono, I think. I've met with Bono about this and talked to him a number of times on the phone about it. I was the first presidential candidate, either side, to come out with a specific platform to fight global poverty, because I think we have an obligation to do that. And I'll do it in big strokes, education, making primary school education available to 100 million children in the world who don't have it. It costs about $3.5 billion a year for America, not to do it alone, but to lead the effort to do it. Stopping the spread of disease by sanitation and clean drinking water, which I've seen myself in Africa, how much impact that can have. Economic development, especially using microloans and micro-lending to create jobs, to start new entrepreneurs, really to create some hope for so many families, particularly in the third world, who don't have that hope. So, I think that's all. Domestic poverty, domestic aid, global aid, and global poverty. Those are the things I do. There's probably more than you wanted to hear, but I thought I was going to do all that for you. Thank you for the question.